Welcome to Mr. Heaton's Math Lab. In this video, we're going to learn how to use a ruler to measure inches, including halves and fourths. So here at the top of our screen is a ruler. And you'll notice that on a ruler, it has these big numbers, which are going to represent the actual numbers that stand for the unit, which could be inches, it could be centimeters, it could be millimeters. But for our example, we're going to call it a unit. So we have 1, we have 2, we have 3, 4, 5, and 6. So say we want to actually highlight right here. And our object is the length from 0 to 3. So we would say that our length is 3 units. Now what if I gave you a point right here? Well, you would know that this length is 5. If we give you a length right here, we know that that length would be 1. Now when we took a look at the whole numbers, we notice that in the middle of that we have this other kind of larger line. We have two small lines, but in between is a larger line. Well, if we're looking at where this starts to 1, you notice that it is in the middle, and we call that the half. Well, there's also a half right here. Well, that's going to be another half, but we would say that this is 1 and 1/2. We have a half mark right here. Well, since it follows from the 2, we would say this is 2 and 1/2. This would be 3 and 1/2. This would be 4 and 1/2. This would be 5 and 1/2, and so on. Now let's talk about these other smaller lines, these really small ones. Well, if this is 1/2, this we call the 1/4. Well, there's also a 1/4 right here. There's a 1/4 right here, a 1/4 right here. So we know that this right here, this 1/4 would be 1 and 1/4. This 1/4 would be 2 and 1/4, because every single time that we pass another whole number, we follow that whole number by what we see inside. So 3 and 1/4, and so on. Okay, now we talked about this one. We've talked about this one, which is a half. Now we need to talk about this one. Well, this one we actually call the 3/4 mark. Okay, so this is 3/4. This is 1 and 3/4. This is 2 and 3/4. This is 3 and 3/4. And we can keep going all the way to 6 and 3/4. Okay, well for this one, since the line falls exactly here, this would be 1. Now this one actually doesn't fall on the whole number. Okay, it follows here. So we know that it is 1, 2, 3. So it is 3. Is it a 1/4, a 1/2, or a 3/4? Well, that's a 3/4 right there. So it would be 3 and 3/4. Okay, so remember, we have a 1/4, we have a 1/2, and we have a 3/4. So since it is past the 1/2, or it's the closest to the next number, it would be 3/4. Now what about this one? Well, again, we have a 1/4, we have a 1/2, and a 3/4. Well, since it is right here, this is going to be a 1/2. Now since it is before the 1, that means it's not 1 and 1/2, it's just a 1/2 by itself. Say we had a 1/2 right here, we would know that this would be 4 and 1/2. We could also think of it as there's a 0 right here. So 0 and a half would be, we don't say 0 and 1/2, we just say 1/2. Now let's try this one. Okay, so we have 1, 2, and we have a 1/4, we have a 1/2, we have a 3/4. Well, since it follows here, the answer would be 2 and 1/2. Now let's take a look at this one. Okay, we know it is past the 6. We have a 1/4, we have a 1/2, and we have a 3/4. Okay, we know that it is at 3/4, so the answer would be 6 and 3/4. Now what about this one? Okay, well it is on the full line, right? It corresponds to the 3, so the answer would be 3. Now let's take a look at this one, right? We have 1, we have 1/4, we have 1/2, and we have 3/4. Since it follows on the quarter, We're going to call this one 1 1/4. Now let's try this one. Okay, this time I'm only going to write that it is a 1/4 here, it is a 1/2 here, and it is a 3/4 here. Okay, well we know, let's see, that this one, it's a little bit larger. It's not the really small one, but it's not a whole number. It's in between the 5 and the 6. Well, if it's directly in between, we know that that is a half, so it is 5 1/2. Okay, let's try this last one. Again, I'm going to put it over here. We have 1/4, we have 1/2, and we have 3/4. Okay, is it closer to the next number, or is it closer to the number before it? Okay, what side does it fit on? Well, it does fit on the 1/4 side. Okay, and remember there's a 0 here and there's a 1 here. So we don't say 0 1/4, and we can't say that. We just say it is 1/4. If you're looking to take your math skills to the next level, check out Mr. Heaton's Math Lab. We offer a range of resources to help you succeed, from free workbooks and Common Core assessments to focused mini courses and comprehensive curriculum courses. Head over to www.mrheatonsmathlab.com to get started today.